Hey, what is up YouTube? Today we have another comparison video. We have two products by the company Bragi. First we have the Dash, and then we have the Headphone. For those of you that don't know, the Dash was one of the first wireless or true wireless headsets that came out to the market. It was launched as a Kickstarter campaign, and it was also touted as the first kind of fitness monitoring headset, so a smart wireless headset, and that meant that it could track activities. Basically has a lot of sensors in it, and it's like a microcomputer in your ear. And so this has been out roughly about a year now. I backed it on Kickstarter, so I've been using it since then. And in this review, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I like, what I don't like, and how the headphone has improved on certain aspects of the Dash. Even though I don't believe they're strictly meant to be competitors in some ways, because this is about a year newer, it does have a little bit better technology, and therefore it kind of does compare to this. So yeah, we'll get into it. Hope you enjoy. The biggest complaint I've seen about the Dash is by far the Bluetooth range. When it first came out on version, I want to say it was 1.2 of the firmware, it was pretty horrendous. Like there were certain times you could be sitting this way and have the Dash over here, and because it connects to your right ear, the interference just basically wouldn't allow it to process the signal properly, even if it was like bouncing off walls. But that was subsequently kind of fixed in, I think 1.4 was the best one that fixed it, and then with 2.0 and onwards, it's definitely gotten more reliable. But it's still not great when you're using it outdoors. Forget about it. You're gonna get cutouts here and there unless you have it somewhere close to your right ear, which is the headpiece on the Dash that receives the Bluetooth signal, which then communicates to the left earpiece. So yeah, that's one of the biggest complaints about it, and it still remains a little bit of an issue today, but I'll talk about why that's not as big of a deal as you might think. Then comes the headphone, and these honestly are tenfold better than this. Bragi heard people's complaints, which is kind of nice for them. I think through all their feedback, the subreddits and all that, and journal reviews, it definitely improved. I can have my phone anywhere in my body. I can have it in another room. You don't really get cutouts. I think I've gotten cutouts like once or twice, but those were in less than ideal situations when I was outside, might have had it on my left side, and I turned completely the other way, and there was no way the signal could bounce off anywhere. So props to Bragi for listening to their customers, and they've definitely done a good job with this, and I think the connection woes that plagued this device are essentially gone with the headphone. So looking at the controls on the two devices, I'm going to grab the right headphone and the right Dash. You can see on the headphone there are three little buttons. There's your main center button and then the volume buttons. This is used to control your track, turn it on and off, volume up, volume down. If you hold the plus button, it'll use the turn on the transparency, which allows external audio to come through with the microphone here. If you hold the negative, it'll turn it off, so it'll isolate. And the Dash is kind of split between the two. So the right one is mostly for your volume control, your track control, and then the left one here, actually, if you swipe forward, it'll turn transparency on, back, transparency off. A newer feature they've added is if you have transparency on and you swipe forward again, it'll turn windshield on, which is kind of neat. It blocks out wind noise, which was a really big issue in the past. If you're if I was bike riding and I wanted to have the transparency on to be able to hear the cars around me, it was almost unbearable in the sense that you just get this wind buffeting noise. But with windshield, they've kind of solved that issue. So in terms of these controls, I think it would be kind of nice if they had maybe split the transparency buttons onto the left dash, or the left headphone, sorry. But then again, it all comes back to the cost saving. That would have been more buttons and just more resources and dollars put there. The one benefit of the headphone though is that because they're physical tactile buttons, you don't really get false positives, whereas the dash is basically touch sensitive, and it's very sensitive in terms of, you know, if you're wearing a hat or something, or like a hood or a helmet, that can brush against it and sometimes accidentally, you know, turn the transparency on or the volume down or pause it or something, which is then annoying to have to, you know, take off the hat and like replay or something. So that's definitely a benefit of the headphone here. All right, so talking about the fit and comfort, the dash is definitely a lot heavier than the headphone. Because it has, you know, a bigger battery and more sensors inside of it. If I had to just, you know, say based on feel, it's probably at least, you know, twice as heavy. The headphone in the ear feels very light, and, you know, it doesn't ever feel like it's gonna fall out. The dash also does not feel like it's gonna fall out, and that's actually one of the biggest questions I've had from people that ask me about them. Because it has, you know, a lot of this kind of sleeve that you can put on, it's very grippy, and it sits in there pretty well. I've never had an issue wearing either of these in the past year where they came out without me pulling them out, and that includes in the water. So yeah, it has, I think the basic sleeve is just a little tip here, and then it has the medium sleeve, which goes all the way around, the large, and then the XL, if you have really giant beefy ears. So I'm using the large right now, and this is the small, and this is one of the colored sleeves that Bragi now offers. They sent out to all the Kickstarter backers. So yeah, I'd say they're about equally comfortable. So in terms of connecting to your smart device, on the dash, the first time I think you just hold for a few seconds and it'll go into pairing mode, then you can find it on your phone. Same thing with the headphone. You just hold that little down center button. And as you'll see, if I hold it, it will turn white right there. And then that will, you know, if you hold it even more, it'll put it into pairing mode. Then, you know, every subsequent time, the dash, right when you take it out of the case, because it's a smart device, it knows when it's like in the case, it knows when it's in your ear actually. It will then auto connect. So you take the dash out, you put it in, auto connects, you play. When you take it out, you throw it back in the case, boom, that's it. The headphone, you have to take it out, turn it on, hold it for a few seconds, put it in, and then once you take it out, you have to turn it off and put it back in the case. That is a little strange for me because having used the dash for about a year, I would always forget to turn the headphone off, and then I would, you know, a day later or something, come back to it and the battery would be dead. Not really a big deal. I mean, most Bluetooth headsets on the market, you do have to turn on and off. It's just something that I've kind of been used to with the dash. So yeah, not a huge issue, just something to remember. In terms of upgradability, the dash does have the option to update the firmware. You just put it in the case, plug it in, and the firmware can be updated. As far as I know, the headphone is kind of what you see is what you get right now, but given that it's such a good product, it has decent battery life, it has great connectivity, I don't really see much more that you would want to put in here. The reason that, you know, the dash really has that is that it's such a smart device. It has so many sensors, has so much capability built into it that they can keep upgrading stuff. And they have done a pretty good job since the Kickstarter campaign of pushing out updates regularly, but I'd say in the past couple months they haven't really. So we'll see. They supposedly say there's one in the works, so we'll see what that brings. Now, if we talk about the case, the dash, I've wrapped mine here. I have a tutorial on how to wrap it if you want to look at that. Same thing can be applied to the headphone. This is a metal case. I think it's an anodized aluminum. The headphone case is just some sort of plastic. It's a lot lighter. And the reason I wrapped this was because it kept getting dinged, and because it's anodized black aluminum, it had all these white chips in it. And it kind of started looking pretty bad. So I wrapped it. Good solution to that. But that being said, this is a pretty heavy case because it has a charger in it. The dash are just heavier in general, and this is metal. So pretty beefy and bulky and just kind of large. In the winter, it's not really a big deal because I can just throw it in my jacket pocket or something. But I did find myself in the summer having some issues of just figuring out where to put it without having like a huge bulge in my pocket. And these are really not something that you're gonna take out of the case and just like throw in your pocket, unless you want to lose it. So going to the headphone case, much smaller, super light. There's no battery in here. So as a package, they're very, I'd say in terms of, they look about exactly the same height, roughly the same depth, but in terms of weight and thickness, you can see that they're very different. And these are something that I've had no problem just throwing in my pocket and almost not even noticing that it's there. So going back to the battery, the dash gets about 2.5 to maybe 3 hours, maybe a little more than 3 if you're just using the internal player. But connected to Bluetooth, that's obviously going to decrease a little bit, and depending on, if you're doing an activity, if you have the volume on max, things like that. But it does have about, I want to say somewhere between 4 to 5 charge cycles in the case. So when you charge this, it actually charges the battery inside here, which has the ability to then charge it in the case, which is a really neat feature. I'd say I'd probably have to charge these maybe once a week, just in terms of the case. There were some issues originally where it would just trickle charge and I'd come back and it'd just be dead without me having used it for like 2 days, but they've fixed that in firmware updates. The headphone, on the other hand, lasts about 6 hours. So there's no internal battery in this case, but that being said, I've never really been in a situation where I've needed to use these more than like 3 hours. So that is, pretty nice that they have a long battery, and then you can just charge it kind of like you charge your phone if you've used it up that day. Hey guys, after reviewing my footage, I realized that I forgot to talk about the call quality on both of these. The headphone, pretty much flawless, great connection. People said they could hear me loud and clear, no issues, and also a solid Bluetooth connection to your phone. The dash, on the other hand, with the splotchy connection to your phone, isn't super great. And also, when it first came out, it used the bone conduction mic, which had pretty mixed results. So the first firmware versions were pretty lackluster, and then as they started updating, it started getting better and actually becoming usable. Ever since I upgraded to the last firmware, I think 2.1, it's pretty much non-usable. So anytime someone calls me, I can hear them, but they can't hear me. So I have to, disconnect my Bluetooth and then just talk on the phone. Kind of annoying. I reached out to Bragi. They said that I could send them in, but it's going to take like 3 to 4 weeks. So I might do that in the future, but it makes it pretty big hassle. So yeah, headphone definitely better call quality for sure. So going back to fitness, the headphone are really great because they're so light. They last a very long time. So if you're doing a long activity, or I don't know, running a marathon, they would definitely last you the whole time. I think they are relatively sweat proof, so no issues on that front of getting any sweat inside. But going back to the Dash, these are definitely catered more towards fitness when they first came out. And that being said, they are fully waterproof, and they have fitness tracking. So that's definitely a benefit of these. Talking about my swimming experience a little with these, I don't know if you can see in here, but I lined the inner little ear piece that goes in with something called sugru, which essentially molds to your ear canal, and then it let it set for 24 hours, and then it seals off perfectly. So before doing that, I had a lot of issues with swimming. Once water gets into the ear canal, it gets very muffled, you can't really hear much. And then that also means that it gets into the speaker reservoir there. And that would actually sometimes cause the Dash to just sound muted even outside of the water for a while. But once I added the sugru, fixed everything. These are honestly really awesome to swim with, and part of the reason I still have them, versus just using the headphone. They definitely are going to have better, tracking with activities. But one of my complaints is that, when you're doing an activity such as swimming or running or something, chances are you might not want to bring your phone. So, you put them in, and then you want to have, your music play, so you do that, and then you set the activity. Once you set the activity, it allows you to track everything, but then once you go to sync back to the app, which only the Dash has, it won't allow you to sync stuff off of your Dash onto the app. You supposedly, and I talked to Bragi about this, you have to, in the app, first set the activity, then go do what you want, which kind of defeats the purpose of having an independent standalone device. So that's something that they are working on. And in theory, it should make sense because, it does have 4 gigabytes of internal storage. So if you want it to, just store all of your activity data as you're, on the fly, it should be able to. And that was, I think, last fall that I asked them about that. No update on that yet, but, fingers crossed. So, it is a great tool. When I'm swimming, for example, every 5 minutes it'll give me readouts of like my heart rate, breaths taken, laps swam, and that is very neat. And same thing for running, cycling, all that. So yeah, it's great for activity tracking. Definitely could use some improvements as well. And the headphone, as you have to have your smartphone, but that's not a downside really, because the connection is so rock solid that it makes it a very compelling piece to buy right now at $150. Unless you're swimming, I don't think I would recommend the Dash. The headphone has better connectivity, it's lighter, and it's honestly half the price. So it fixed a lot of what the Dash originally didn't do very well. That being said, the Dash still has its very particular use case. Personally, I just like being able to go into the gym, throw my music on this, and then go work out for a while and just be disconnected from the world, and swimming as well. But right now, if you're looking at the AirPods, I think that the headphone is a very compelling argument against those. It is a much sleeker design, but that being said, I still have to test the AirPods, so we'll see when I get those. And so, yeah, those are my my thoughts on these two. I appreciate if you've made it this far in the video, but let me know if you have any questions or comments on both of these. I have a few other wireless headphones that'll be coming in soon. I should be getting to test those out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.